What is going on, Roundtable Sports, and welcome back into another edition here of Roundtable Sports Draftaholics, man, your favorite spot here for everything involving the NFL draft and prospects. We got a bit of a sad news for you guys today as we roll into today's episode. It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. The 2025 NFL draft has officially come to a close. It has been a great process for you guys. Year one ever of doing Draftaholics, and it was an absolute success. But today is going to be the final episode here on Draftaholics. There we're going to be breaking down every single team's draft. We're going to be recapping it. We're going to be giving our final grades. Draftaholics is not over, though, right? It's over for now, but Draftaholics will be picking up for the 2026 NFL Draft. Real quick, just wanted to thank you guys for all the support you have shown this show over the last few months. I want to thank Derek. I want to thank Dose. I want to thank Broshmo for hopping on here every single week and really just giving the best damn draft analysis every single week out there on the damn platform. But fellas, I think without further ado, we got a lot of teams to hop into here over the next hour. So I say let's just get into this. So starting off here, well, actually, we should probably start at the beginning if we're going to do this right. So let's start off here with the Arizona Cardinals here. They go Walter Nolan in the first. In the second, really good value there with Will Johnson, who surprisingly fell to the second. Many people had him as a first-round pick. Some even had him as the number one cornerback. Then you got Jordan Birch there, edge in the third. Cody Simon there in the fourth out of Ohio State. Denzel Burke, the cornerback, in the fifth. In the sixth, they get Hayden Connor. And then in the seventh, they get Caden Crawford. Broshmo, let's start with you. What did you think about the Cardinals draft?
I liked it a lot. They went defensive heavy. They were able to get Will Johnson. He was falling because reports were a chronic knee issue. So medicals came up, but you could argue outside of like Travis Hunter, he was probably the best corner in this class. Again, you could argue that. I was a Walter Nolan mark, man. He was a top 12 player to me. They addressed the defensive line, got Jordan Burke, very versatile type. Like, I love their draft a whole ton. I think they went about it the right way.
What would you give an overall grade?
A.
Okay. I like that. I agree with that. I gave them an A-. Like you said, they go Walter Nolan early on. I believe that addressing the trenches, especially in this draft class, that is arguably the best draft class for the defensive line that we have ever seen come out of the draft. Making sure that they were able to target on that, especially early on, I think is absolutely vital. Mike Vrabel said this best himself. Football games are won in the trenches, and they get one of the best guys there on the interior of that defensive line with Walter Nolan. That second-round pick there with Will Johnson, continuing to solidify that defense. You built in the trenches. Now you're building in the secondary with excellent value. I have an A- for them, but I do still like ultimately what they did. Broshmo, what were your thoughts? Or excuse me, not Broshmo. Dose, what are your thoughts? Broshmo, I just love your thoughts so much, man. Now we'll go back to Dose.
No, I thought it was every pick to me kind of feels like an upside pick. I mean, that's the draft, I guess, but every pick to me kind of feels like there's like, okay, what can we turn this into? Which is kind of fun because I think the Arizona team got a lot out of their defense this last season, but it feels like they took advantage of that where it was like, okay, maybe you don't only see it from Walter Nolan, but you also see the crazy skill set that he brings. And then the Will Johnson was the injury, and it's like, all right, this guy probably shouldn't be here. And then Jordan Birch kind of felt the same way where it's like, man, you love him when he's at his best, but let's see if we can find the consistency there. I felt that with Denzel Burke, just as a movement piece, but they put him in coverage. All right, this feels a little inconsistent. I felt like that's how their entire draft went, where it has the upside to be spectacular, but I don't know that it's going to hit. Like, there's a lot of these guys I'm just not super confident about. That said, though, the biggest one for me is the Walter Nolan one. That's one where I ended up having a DT2, so I think I was close to where Broshmo was, probably right there. I never fell in love with the prospect, but I understood why teams would love the prospect, especially from this interior class. Just he brought all the factors to be something that you would want to buy into. I know he called himself like an Aaron Donald, I think, at one point. So for me, it's higher on the B level. I give it like a B+, right? Because I think you are banking on some upside here. But, man, a lot of the dudes, like I was high on a lot of these players. So I'll go B+.
All right, B+ there for Dose, A- for me, and an A there for Broshmo to wrap up here the Arizona Cardinals 2025 draft class. So let's move on here to the next team. A really interesting team here because I like what they did early on, but then they made some questionable moves here with the Atlanta Falcons, right? I loved that Jalen Walker pick. I think he's going to fit that scheme perfectly. A really dynamic and versatile piece there on the defense. But then they traded up there back into the first round at 26 to get James Pierce. Pierce. This is a guy that has all the talent in the world, some big time character concerns, though. Wouldn't surprise me if he was a guy that, because of those character concerns, and maybe that's a hot take, but I wouldn't have been surprised if he fell like early there on day 2. I don't like the value that they gave up just to get another edge rusher after they went Jalen Walker. That definitely dropped my stock for them. I also thought too, I mean, like, they only made a few picks and I feel like they have a good amount of needs. I would have liked to see them maneuver the board a little bit better. Then you got Xavier Watts. I do like that addition. I like the addition too of Billy Bowman. They got Jack Nelson there in the 7th. I just feel like they didn't hit on all of the needs that maybe they had. I don't love the way they operated that board, especially, like I said, moving back up there in the value they gave there for James Pierce. I'm going to give this one a B- for the Atlanta Falcons personally. Like some of the players, don't necessarily love the way that they maneuvered here for this 2025 draft. Brochman, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, that's a tough one because I love who they drafted. Like Xavier Watts was a steal at pick 96. That trade back into the first round, a lot of Falcons fans are going to try to talk themselves into it. We just exchanged next year's first for a first this year. But you turned your second into pick 101. So that's not great. So you're kind of banking on James Pierce being legit, being the guy. And I'd argue, yeah, he was probably a top 10 talent. If not, word was he might be a douche, which, hey, maybe they could bring that in. Billy Bowman, apparently he's going to be playing in the slot. I got questions about his run game, his just ability to play the run, but dude's phenomenal ball skills. And honestly, Jack Nelson's not a bad developmental tackle for that system. Overall, I gave it a B+ because I like the players a lot. Just the trade kind of left me like scratching my head a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Billy Bowman, too. I mean, you double down at safety. That was obviously one of their biggest needs they tried to address with Justin Simmons last year. Billy Bowman is going to be an absolute ball hawk. This was a guy that had the most interceptions returned for touchdowns in college football this past year. So absolute freaking dog there for Atlanta, who they just need some playmakers on that defense. Dose, what do you think?
Man, I love the aggressiveness, even though it looks crazy. Like, so what they gave up is pretty nuts when you think about it. It's like, yeah, that's a lot, bro, to go get James Pierce because, like, it's like Brosmo said, like, the players, I like the players, and if there's the team where it's like, all right, dude, just go get guys that can get after the quarterback. It's like, we're going to be super aggressive. Atlanta probably should do that. Same thing in the back end. Maybe get some guys that can take the football away a few times. Like, those two things make a ton of sense. So I like that they just went for it. They didn't try to sprinkle around. They're just like, we're getting these pieces. We're going to fix this defense. But what you gave up is kind of crazy here. So I want to love this one because I love the aggression. I'm just in a weird spot with this draft. Ultimately, though, I think what could end up happening is I feel pretty comfortable. You could have 4 starters here for the next 4 years. And I don't think that's super easy to find. So because of that, I think I'm going to go A-.
A-. Okay, so it looks like I was the one lowest here for the Atlanta Falcons. But what are your guys' thoughts on the Falcons draft? Let us know in the comment section below. Moving on to the next team, we got the Baltimore Ravens, who got some absolute dogs. I think they got really good value, but they had a massive, massive draft class this year. Malachi Starks in the 1st. They go Mike Green there in the 2nd. Emory Jones in the 3rd, just to name a few of the players they got. I mean, Aeneas Peebles, I thought was really good for them as kind of that developmental guy who had a really good pre-draft process. Getting him in the 6th, like I said, a really good value. Dose, let's start with you. What did you think about the Ravens draft here?
Yeah, it felt like a lot of, to me, either like an under the radar type of player, or it was a player that like maybe wasn't a standout within his own team, but when you watched him, you kind of liked what you got from him. Like, so obviously at the top, they ended up landing Mike Green. That one kind of fell to him. But like, as you go beyond that, like I wasn't huge on Emory Jones, but you saw the athleticism. You're like, all right, well, maybe this could work at tackle. And I just felt like across the board, that's what we ended up with. Like with Buchanan, you like the size, the movement. It's like, well, maybe. And you just kind of feel like when you think about putting Baltimore there, I love the cone pick. I thought that was massive in the 6th round to end up sliding him into that defense. And then you throw in like a Wester. And you're like, all right, well, that dude can fly. So, I mean, maybe this works. Like maybe this is the right team to make this thing work. It just doesn't feel like a lot of surefire picks for me outside of the first 2. But I guess that's where you should get those pieces. So because it's Baltimore, I kind of love what they did, dude. I don't know. It's hard to knock these drafts. I'm going to go with solid A.
With solid A. Brochman, what are your thoughts?
I'm in the same ballpark. I gave it a solid A. I mean, you sit back and Malachi Starks just falls to you. Cool. Love it. Great fit for the defense. You sit back, Mike Green falls for you, falls for obvious reasons, some red flags there. But nonetheless, outside of that, he was a top 10 player to me. Amazing. Emory Jones, I can see a path, whether it's at guard or at tackle, because they do need a left guard right now. I don't think that guy's going to be Ben Cleveland. I don't think that guy is Andrew Voorhees, but we'll see. Teddy Buchanan was a little early for me. He's more of a coverage linebacker, but it's fine. I mean, at this point, it's like, take whoever you like, I suppose. There were some interesting picks here and there, like Carson Vincent. That's going to be a great developmental option. Like, that might pay off like 3 years down the line when Ronnie Stanley's like, okay, I'm done. All in all, I just gave it an A because I feel like they did no wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not too far off where you guys were. I had somewhere between about an A to an A plus, but I'm going to go with the consensus here. I'm going to bring it down here to an A. I like you guys said, I love the value that they got. Malachi Starks just falling in their laps. This was a guy that I was like, he kept falling down boards, and I was like, you know what? This might be another Brian Branch situation where he's like the top safety on the board, and he's such a good player, and there's no question marks about it, but that safety position maybe isn't just as valued as we thought. Maybe he falls here today too, but then the Ravens come to their senses and they select him. I think that makes a ton of sense in their defensive scheme. Getting Mike Green in the second where he did, this was a guy that obviously has some of those not reported character concerns per se, but more so he has those allegations on him. And do you want that surrounding your team? And I think that's why he fell as much as he did. You know, Mike Green, Dos can attest to this. Mike Green was one of my guys during this entire pre-draft process. So when those allegations came out, I was like, yeah, there's no way the Patriots are drafting him, but really good value for the Ravens. You know, he's going to be an absolute dog for them. He was a top 3 edge rusher in this class for me. Overall, you can't hate what they did. Like you said, I don't think they necessarily reached on any players, and they had such a large draft class where, you know, kind of as you get here into the 6th and you get into the 7th round, they can kind of just take shots because of the amount of picks that ultimately they had, and you're not really going to second guess them. I don't feel like all of these players are going to necessarily be impactful guys, but I think they got really good value for the most part, which is why it's an A for me and not necessarily that perfect A+. But moving on here to the next team, we got the Buffalo Bills, in division rival here for both me and Baroshmo. They had an interesting draft, right? They went Maxwell Harrison in the first. They still had Will Johnson on the board, right? So they could have went a different direction, but they go with the fastest cornerback, at least had the fastest 40 time at the combine amongst cornerbacks, and they really just addressed the defense, more specifically the defensive line with TJ Sanders, and then you go Landon Jackson, and then you get that developmental big body guy with Deion Walker that's going to be an edge rusher, but can also obviously play in the interior of that defensive line. Broshmo, what did you think about the Buffalo Bills draft?
So I thought they did what they should have. They needed to address this defense. This offense, hey, pumping on all cylinders, looks great. Defense was kind of a letdown last year, and they went out and addressed it. I figured corner was going to be the first pick because I just assumed by pick 56, and I think they had 62, things were going to get a little dicey at that corner position. They get Maxwell Harrison. Awesome, great scheme fit. Then they go TJ Sanders, which I thought they might wanted a little bit more heft, but that's fine. Sanders, hell of a good player, and I think they moved up to get him with the Bears. And then Landon Jackson, I thought was a bill from the outset. I figured he was going to go in the 2nd round. He just feels like, looking at what they did with like Gregory Rousseau, getting just a big physical, just nasty player. They tried it with Boogie Basham, didn't work, but hey, worked out with Russo. You get Landon Jackson, you could develop him. I like Landon Jackson. I think there's creativity as a pass rusher. Is just, can you polish some of that off and make it efficient? Deion Walker is going to be interesting. He's not the heft. He's not going to be the guy that can stop the run. But if you're looking to get after the passer, I think that's someone that can do that. And then the remainder of their draft, I thought was fine. Jordan Hancock, I don't know where he plays in the backfield, whether it's deep, box, slot. He can even play outside. He's got the build to do that. So I thought it was a good pick. Dorian Strong, low key, kind of a steal there.
Yeah.
So got some really good depth at the corner position. I gave it a B+. I thought it was solid. They did take some players maybe a little bit outside of my range, but not like crazy reaches. And I just like their strategy overall.
Yeah, I originally had a B for them, and then last night on the AFC East Roundtable, another show brought to you by Roundtable Sports. For those who don't know, we have every single division covered here on their individual channels, but I originally had this as a B, and then we had our Bills representative come on, Kevin, and he really broke down what they were doing and how it was going to impact and how guys fit the scheme perfectly, and I was like, instead of a B, I'm actually going to go with a B+, because he made an excellent point. They had to go pretty much all defense, more specifically that defensive line. The Philadelphia Eagles were a beautiful blueprint. I mean, even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a few years ago, a beautiful blueprint on how to get to Patrick Mahomes and stop him. That has been the Achilles heel to the Buffalo Bills. That's been their biggest problem, and it's going to continue to be what stops them from actually competing to get a Lombardi trophy. So what did they do? They went defensive heavy, and they made sure that they addressed that defensive line in a great defensive line class to make sure that they can try and impact, some of these better quarterback and better offenses, such as Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So I gave it a B+. Like I said, I think that there were some better value players ultimately on the board. I'm not expecting any of these guys to be a superstar or anything of those sorts, but I do think that they'll all be very good complementary pieces to each other to upgrade that defense. Dose, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, this, I think Broshman, as he pointed out with Landon Jackson, you can feel the style with all of their draft picks and kind of what they were going for. Like they all kind of have a certain style you're looking for. Like you got a lot of smart players. Maybe they don't have the perfect build or like all the traits you're looking for. But you got some tough dudes in here. Throwing Jackson Hawes in there is just like, all right, dude's probably tight end 3. I don't even know where he fits. I don't know how he gets above that. It's like, okay, for that team, I got you. And I thought the biggest thing was the value. At least for me, I thought the value kind of lined up with where they took him. Like I wasn't the biggest Landon Jackson guy, but you get him in round 3. It's like, okay, that makes sense. That ties in really well with where they're at. So my biggest problem is I don't know how many actual, eventual starters they get here, but that could be more so just because of where they're at as a roster. And I love the first 2. I think TJ Sanders is fantastic. So, again, maybe a little bit undersized, but I just love the way that he plays the game. I think he's super smart. So for me, it's just trying to figure out what's the long-term role as we get 4 years down the road beyond a lot of these guys is settling in as backups. But I think for where they're at as a team, it does make some sense. I think it's going to really raise the floor of the team. So I'll go with a B.
With the B. All right. Well, moving forward here, let's get into the Carolina Panthers, who made some pretty good picks in this draft. I mean, this is really the type of draft that I feel like the Carolina Panthers needed to have to get back on track, especially after some of the promise that they showed with Bryce Young in the second half of 2024. They obviously go Ted McMillan with their first pick. They address the defensive line and go Nick Scorton there in the second, pretty good value. They trade up and get Princely there in the third. They get Trevor Etienne in the fourth. Some might view that as a bit of a reach, but he was expected to go somewhere in between, rounds 4 to 5. I think overall they made some pretty good selections. Broshma, what did you think?
This is one of my favorite drafts. I have an A+ grade. Tet was great. I think he's going to be legit. And there with Xavier Legette, you get some legit weapons there for Bryce Young. And I'm glad that they made moves and they had this massive pick swap with the Broncos to ensure that they addressed the edge position. Because I was like, I'm not satisfied with what they did at edge. Bringing in Patrick Jones. No, problem's not fixed. You need some guys there. And then they double dip with Princey Umamielen, top 50 grade, Nick Scorton, top 50 grade. I love those 2 picks. With Etienne, this was right around the range I had him on my board. And he kind of fills that receiving back, lightning in a bottle, just kind of what they have with Blackshear, I believe is his name. So that one was fine. Lathan Ransom, good safety. Hopefully not made of glass anymore. He's kind of got an injury history, but good safety went on the field. They needed a safety desperately. So cool. They add him to the rotation. And honestly, Jimmy Horn's kind of a low key. That's some quicks, some speed that they desperately needed on the roster. So yeah, I came away with this being one of my favorite drafts.
Yeah, I think early on, I think that's one of the most important things. You look at this class early on, and they got really good value for the most part. They got very good, impactful players. They addressed the trenches. They got another weapon there for Bryce Young. I would say in the first 4 rounds, I really like what they did. I don't necessarily love those mid to later picks, but at the end of the day, those are mid to later picks. You're taking shots on players that you personally believe could potentially be a diamond in the rough. They show that potential. They show some intangibles that you think you could capitalize on. So for me personally, I'm going to go with an A-. This was definitely one of the better draft classes for all the teams in the NFL. I think they hit this out of the park for the most part. Dose, what did you think?
I'm the opposite. I actually like the back end more for this
really?
one. I like Lathan Ransom popping in there. I mean, this is a guy that I think could eventually start for this team, but Mitchell Evans, I think, stabilized that room. He kind of offset Sanders pretty well, so I like putting him in there. Pointed out Jimmy Horn and kind of the upside that you could potentially have, and then Cam Jackson just settles it all down on the inside. I feel like they got really strong value in the back end. Whereas the front end, I'm a little bit more skeptical. Like, obviously, for me, Nick's score, I didn't think he was like overwhelming for what his build was, but they had him playing different spots. He's super young. It's like, what are we going to get to? Princely, it just felt like, okay, super bendy, moves well. I want to see a lot more work with his hands, those kind of things. And then Ted has all the questions with him. But the top three feel like, okay, we could really splash with these. And as Brochman pointed out, they have to get guys that can get after it. So going back to back makes sense. But I like ETN, Ransom. I feel like those are sneaky. They could have 2 or 3 of those guys that could stick around for a long time. That's kind of where I'm at with this one. So not as much with the top. I like the back end a little bit more here.
So what overall grade would you give?
Oh my, yeah. I'm gonna go B. Right,
You're gonna go B? Wait, whoa, wow. Okay, so I like the class more than you did. All right, how about that?
So,
How about that?
Okay, you know what I mean?
Dude, I don't know if you guys saw this. I don't remember who his name was. It was for NFL Network. He gave out his grades right after the NFL draft. Bro clearly was too old. He has no idea what he's talking about. He gave like a B or a B minus to the Patriots. He gave like a B minus to the Panthers. I was like, what are we doing, dude? He gave like an A plus to the Dolphins. I was like, all right, someone needs to lose their job now. But let us know what you guys thought about the Panthers draft in the comment section below. Let's move on here to the Chicago Bears, who, wow, boy, oh boy, are the Chicago Bears having really the exact offseason that this team needed to have. And they made some good moves in free agency and via trade. And then they go into the draft and they get Colston Loveland at tight end. I believe he was the first tight end taken off the board. In fact, yeah, he was the first tight end taken off the board, which I know shocked some people. But I mean, Colston Loveland was a guy that, was my tight end 1 for this class for a very, very long time. So it didn't really surprise me that a team viewed him with more potential upside because he showed more consistency throughout his collegiate career. You get Luther Burden, who fell to the second. A lot of people questioning why that happened. More character concerns, more effort concerns when he's not getting the ball. That's why he fell. But they obviously got really, really good value there in the second. They're building up that offense big time for Caleb Williams. And then getting Ozzie Chapillo there. I didn't like Ozzie as like a second round pick, but you saw those offensive linemen, especially those tackles, flying off the board there in the first round. So you understand why maybe that raises the value of somebody like Ozzie Chapillo a little bit. Big guy there who's mainly projected as a right tackle, but does have experience on the left side too. Then they get Shamar Turner there in the second also. Really, really like the majority of picks they made. I'm going to kick this thing off, and I'm going to give the Chicago Bears an A for this class. Dose, what are your thoughts?
I just thought it was like not overthinking a draft. It was like, let's just take some like fiery athletes.
Best player available.
Put him in a spot. Like, that's what it felt like across the board here. I think the Colston Loveland pick was A+. Like, I thought that was fantastic for this team. I think it's going to be perfect. But even like as you go through like Shamar Turner, right? People are like, all right, he gets flagged a lot. But like, I think the dude can play. I know I'm higher on Shamar Turner than Brochman is personally. I like him. So this is a pick that it's kind of like, okay, I'd rather not see him there because he's going to hit a couple of my guys after the play, but that is what it is. Maybe we'll get some 15-yard flags. But you get Ruben, like you get some dudes that can fly, man. So I just thought they went athletically speaking. They just didn't overthink. I mean, even taking Luther, like after the slip, if you want to call it a slip, and just kind of like, yeah, we're just going to take the dude. He's really good at football. So I don't know. It's in a weird spot because as it was going, like I felt like maybe it lacked some identity, but it was also like, okay, this wouldn't surprise me if everybody they're taking is just kind of at the top of where they're at. And it's like, we think this guy's really fun to watch. So I don't know. Maybe it's some bias. I don't know where I'm at with this one, but the Colston Loveland one picks it up. I'm going B+.
B+. Dose, have you given out an A yet? I don't think you have.
Oh,
you're very cautious with your A's. We might fight. We might fight when we get to the Patriots. I'm kind of concerned for our friendship when that pick comes along.
I gave Baltimore an A.
Oh, you did? All right, you gave out 1 A. So now my expectations are high. All right, Brochman, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I love the first part of this draft. I mean, if you are a fantasy owner of any playmaker in Chicago, you hate this draft. I mean, golly, Cole Kmet, gone. DJ Moore, gone. Like, it's horrible. But hey, Caleb Williams now has all the weapons. You get Colston Loveland, who's maybe this Sam Laporta type for Ben Johnson. I love Luther Burden. I thought he, just based on the 2023 tape, still should have warranted a first-round pick. I'm happy that they were able to snag him. They move back. They get Trapillo, which, okay, that's cool. Maybe he could be tackle of the future. I don't know exactly what they're going to be doing with Braxton Jones. Then I feel like they turned the draft over to Dennis Allen because Shamar Turner, okay, I'm not high on him, but I figured, hey, a lot of people think he's a day 2 player, so it is what it is. But Dennis Allen, former Aggie alum, of course, he got a A&M guy. Rupin, I think it's Hippolyte. I didn't watch him. He was one of the guys I was like, I got to the wire and I was like, I don't got time. He had a good pro day. Cool, fun. So I don't know about that one. That one's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Zoff Frazier is a nice pickup. Kyle Monunga is a nice pickup, a good compliment to Swift. Overall, I gave it a B. I thought it was a good, solid draft. Nothing that really like blew my pants off though after the first 2 picks, so to speak.
So to
Figuratively.
Yeah, it didn't actually happen, but I mean, who knows? Maybe it did. What did you guys think about the Bears draft, though? Let us know in the comment section below. Moving on here, though, to the Cincinnati Bengals. Guys, I'm just going to say it. I was very, very underwhelmed. Honestly, if there was an opportunity for them to trade down in the first or the second, I think they should have done it, gotten more draft picks, and really just gone crazy, with draft picks to address this defense, because we know that in free agency, it's all offense. And when you look at the Bengals this past season, they could put up 30, 40 points easy. The problem was the defense. That defense was so bad that team had to just put up a couple extra points, and they were beating the Cincinnati Bengals. But they go Shamar Stewart in the first, Demetrius Knight, the linebacker there, as Dose knows, there in the second, Dylan Fairchild in the interior of that O-line in the third round, and then some depth pieces there as they moved down the board. Broshmo, let's start with you. What did you think about the Bengals?
Yeah, I'm going to keep this one quick. This was probably like my least favorite draft. The thing was, I love a lot of the players that were drafted by teams. I think teams, I don't know, it was one of these weird drafts where I was like, okay, I like a lot of these players that were drafted. I just didn't like the process. Shamar Stewart, don't mind. I get it. Take a swing. I'm all for it. Demetrius Knight, okay, a little higher than where I had him, but you already had Schwessinger go off the board with the second picks, or the first pick of the second round. So that makes sense to me. Okay. Double dipping in a linebacker didn't. I don't care. Okay. Al Golden, he likes 3 linebackers on the field. Maybe in college. The NFL is a different animal. More teams are geared towards sub packages. I don't know why you're double dipping in a linebacker, at least that early with a premium pick in the 4th round. And I like Barrett Carter. Dylan Fairchild was a little bit higher than I thought, but kind of is what it is. Cool. You're getting protection. And then they double dip at that as well. I gave it a C-. Just disagree with the process. You didn't really grab outside of edge, a premium position. Maybe could have thrown corner in there at some point, but you didn't. Is what it is.
Yeah, I gave this one a C. So I was slightly higher on it than Broshmo. I like Dylan Fairchild. I think he'll be a good piece for them, as they've really been trying to solidify that O-line in recent years. And like we said earlier, games are won through the trenches, O-line and D-line. So a little bit early there for Fairchild. But again, I think that all these offensive linemen got taken a lot sooner than expected because of just how valuable they are. They were really flying off the boards really early on in this draft. And I think one of the things we need to start normalizing is the fact that offensive linemen can be taken earlier because of just how much value they have. All offensive production starts with the offensive line. But, Shamar Stewart, didn't love Shamar Stewart. I wasn't as big on him as maybe some other people were. I don't know how big of an impact he's going to have. I like Demetrius Knight. Like you said, maybe a little bit there of a reach for them. They don't really address that secondary the way that I think they should have. So like I said, for me, this one's going to be a C. What'd you think, Dose?
Yeah, well, first off, Colby, I completely disagree. If I'm ever in the top 5, never taking an offensive lineman, I think that would honestly tank your draft. So
that's crazy.
We'll if anybody does
that's crazy.
I just wouldn't even consider it. You know what I mean?
That's crazy. When he's all pro, you're going to be like, oh, damn, you know what? That actually is a pretty good pick.
Consider it.
Drake May throws for 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. And
I don't know who you're talking about. I honestly don't know who you're talking about. We're on the Bengals right now. Look, man, the Dylan Fairchild one, like, I liked him, so it was kind of cool to see him get up here. But it's just like, I don't even think he's a starter right away. So I'm like in a weird spot. I'm like, I just feel like he's got to get a lot stronger. But like, all right, I think he's got some technically sound skill set right now that could work. But I feel like he needs to get stronger. I don't think Carter's a starter right now either. I was a little bit lower on Carter. And then Demetrius Knight, obviously that saves the draft. I mean, let's just keep it above. This saves the draft here. I'm excited for this because I think he's going to come in to start and replace Pratt pretty soon. And I'm like, all right, I personally believe this is going to work for him. The Shamar Stewart one's kind of a swing, as we all know. And then Jalen Rivers, I like these both, but it's just the interior offensive line wasn't deep this year. And I think you got 2 backups in your draft on the interior offensive line, maybe even at their ceiling, which is the concern. Maybe Fairchild becomes a starter, but I think he's a backup. So I just don't think you got to like impact pieces. Like the Stewart fit makes sense. When you have Joseph Ossai, you're starting DN. It's like, okay, let's get Shamar Stewart. We can get kind of the same physical type here, but just go with the guy with a lot higher ceiling. I understand that. but where are we getting the impact right now? That's the concern. I think you could come in this year and have almost no impact from your rookie class, which would be a problem for Cincinnati and where they're at. That's why it lowers it for me. So I'm going to go B-, and Demetrius Knight's holding that thing up. Actually, C+. I'm not getting on no more B. C+.
C+. I was about to say you actually like this class a little bit more than I've seen. I think anybody project, but all right. Moving on here to the Cleveland Browns. They obviously made one of the biggest trades in this entire draft. They moved down, allowed the Jacksonville Jags to move up. They got themselves a future first-round pick. Many people thought, all right, this pick here could be Ashton Genty. They need some help there in the backfield, but instead they say, no, we're going to go with the best projected defensive tackle in this class. We don't care if he's undersized. We don't care how small he is. We're going to go Mason Graham, building up in the trenches here at 5. Then they get Carson Schwessinger there to begin at the second round. Another pretty good value pick there for them. They got Quinshawn Judkins, who went before Travion Henderson, which a lot of people were surprised. I wasn't surprised, right? I had Quinshawn Judkins higher than Travion Henderson, so pretty good pick there for them. They needed help at running back. They got Harold Fannin in the 3rd. I'm going to be honest, because of the pre-draft process, because of the combine, because of the Senior Bowl, I was actually a little bit lower on Harold Fannin. I kind of started to project him as more of a 4th-round guy, but then they go Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd. They get Dylan Sampson in the 4th. That's a running back I like. Actually, that's a pretty good value pick for them. Many thought Dylan Sampson would be a 3rd-round pick. And then they go double down on quarterback. They get Shador in the 5th. So definitely some questionable decisions here for the Cleveland Browns. But Broshma, what'd you think?
Yeah, I like their draft a lot. I like the trade. What brings it down for me is the process. Because like you think you know it right off the bat. Okay, you're trading down. You're not going to take Travis Hunter. You're going to get a first next year. Okay, the plan is quarterback, and then you come in the 3rd round. You get Dylan Gabriel. Cool. That's a good like high end backup guy that can maybe come in and play some games this year. Because next year you're going to get a quarterback. I don't know why'd you get Shador. And I think he should have went in the 2nd or 3rd round. But I think after you got Dylan Gabriel, unless that 3rd round pick was going to be Shador, I don't know why you go with him. Because now it's like, for one, the quarterback room is huge. Yeah. You still got Watson there. You still got Pickett. You got Flacco. So you can't keep all those guys. And then now there's this like, okay, well, is Shador going to be the future quarterback? Because you didn't have that with Dylan Gabriel. You were content if he was a backup. But Shador, he brings kind of that to the table because you could argue, okay, even if it's not for this year, you figured Shador was a player that could maybe start at some point in the league. So I'm just kind of lost with what the process was. I assumed the owner just came in and was like, select him. We want the smoke. We want the media. We want it. We want it all. Man, if that were the case, just take Travis Hunter. Don't trade and then take Shador in the 3rd. But it is what it is. I like the players. Good class. I give it a B+ because I'm just a little lost on that process.
Yeah, for sure. Dose, what'd you think?
The Shador one's weird. But what I do like is I think if you just take the positions, I feel like they drafted the strengths. And I think they're okay in accepting like this year is not going to be good. Like now, maybe it could be. I don't know. They've gotten it out of like whoever the heck's playing quarterback, but like it feels like they're okay with being a year away, which is why the 1st-round pick next year makes it even better because it's like, okay, I like where they draft, like getting Harold Fannin. I actually ended up in as tight end 3, Colby. So actually, I'm really loving him as we got closer and closer. And I feel like that's what they did. They just stuck to they're like, let's get 2 backs out here. Let's go get Mason Graham let's get a linebacker where it's like, okay, maybe it's not the deep, but we'll get one of the top linebackers. I feel like they just hit on the strengths of the draft where they were sitting, which is like, it didn't feel like win now. It felt patient. And then you throw Shador and you're like, okay, why did we do that? It's like, okay, everything made sense. And then why did we do that? So I actually really like it. I'm going to give it an A. But I'm just hoping like the ownership wasn't overwhelming in the Shador pick. Nothing against Shador. I also like him too. But I just hope that's not like a thing because they've done that before in Cleveland. It's been a mess.
Yeah, it's just the problem is it felt like you made a move to get a quarterback next year.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
You basically wasted a pick on one of these guys.
In a much better quarterback class, right? In a much better quarterback class. And everybody thought, well, you go Dylan Gabriel. Okay, well, clearly you're not going Shador after that. Like you're picking Dylan Gabriel over Shador Sanders. You're not picking Dylan Gabriel with the thought process of, okay, we're going to add another quarterback later on. And I think for me, that's really what brings down this class because it's like, for the love of God, just find one quarterback that you're going to go all into. Stop beating around the bush at the most important position. Figure out who your quarterback's going to be because that's really what has kind of held Ben. That's been like the Achilles heel for the Cleveland Browns, is just those inconsistencies at quarterback. So I don't know. I don't love this move. You know that either Dylan Gabriel or Shador, that's going to be a wasted pick for them. I think the value for Shador was obviously good. I don't really love Dylan Gabriel in the third, me personally. I think that's a little bit high. I think at best, at absolute best, this guy's going to be a backup quarterback in the league. I never view him as being a starter, but I see what they did there with Mason Graham. I like the player, like the value. You obviously got a first-round pick for next year. You like that, too, in a much better class. Carson Schwessinger, who was thought of as one of the best linebackers in this class. You get him there to begin the second. Good value. I really like Quinshon Judkins. I really like the fact that you doubled down there with Dylan Sampson. Two guys who are very different types of backs. They're very much complementary, which I really like because you can get them on the field at the same time, and it makes you a multi-dimensional offense. I like Harold Fannin as as a depth guy, right? As a rotational guy. I don't like Harold Fannin as like your number one starting tight end, but that's not what he was projected to be. So while I might have liked him in the fourth, I understand why he went in the third. So I'm with Brosham. I'm giving this one a B+, some questionable decisions, but for the most part, I actually like a good amount of the players that they had taken. Well, let's go ahead, guys. Let's get into the next team, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. Made a very interesting move there in round one, staying at 12 and going with a projected second-round pick out of Alabama, interior offensive lineman Tyler Booker. But then they get really good value on day two, going edge at a Boston College, Donovan Ezeraku. Really, really liked him as a player. Wanted the Patriots to get him. I had him as an easy first-round selection. Good value there. They get Shavon Revel there in the third, which I also thought was good value. He was projected to go in the second. I even saw some people say he could be a late-round first. You get Blue, the running back out of Texas, who ran a insane 40-yard dash, one of, if not the fastest running back in this entire class. So I think they started day one and maybe you had a little bit of questions, but as that draft progressed, you kind of looked back in hindsight and said, okay, maybe this actually wasn't as bad as I thought. And they got some really good value picks. Dose, what did you think?
I thought it was first two picks are like proven production. Tyler Booker's going to get the job, and he got it done at Alabama. Now there's inconsistencies, or maybe there's like some versatility issues, but I think it fits Dallas. And then Donovan Ezeraku, they got like 16 and a half sacks. So you get that immediately. And then everything beyond that kind of felt like flash. It was like, all right, let's just see what this is going to turn into. And it's like, all right, I guess it's not a terrible strategy. I like the Revel one with where they got it. And I think with their cornerback room, even though I like a Kalen Carson, I'm not mad at this pick. And they've done pretty well with their cornerbacks, especially in this kind of mold. Shamar James, I think, is intriguing as well, especially in that defense. I think you get kind of aggressive with him. But, I didn't like the Cornelius pick. I'm not a big Cornelius, fan. I understand there's some flash there. It's like, oh, what can you do? He's so versatile. I'm just not a big fan of it. The Maffa one, I think it guess it makes sense to keep taking swings at running back. It's just overall, I feel like they went early production and then took a lot of swings late for kind of like some flashy swings. That's kind of what I felt like the route. So I always like what they do at the top of the draft. Seems like they know how to hit guys consistently, unless it's Mozzie Smith. So because of that, let's say it's in a solid spot. I'm going to go like B minus probably.
Wow, B minus. Okay, so yeah, you didn't really love this draft for them. All right, you love the draft for them, Dose. That's okay. Everybody's different. What did you think, Broshmo?
Yeah, I mean the Tyler Booker pick. I think he was. I didn't think he was a first half of the first round guy, but for the right team, being a first rounder is kind of warranted, and Dallas felt like the right team. So you just lost Zach Martin. I thought it made sense. Did I love it? No, but I thought it made sense. Donovan Ezeraku, Savon Revel, extraordinary value, hit it out of the park. I love those picks. Jaden Blue, I'm not a Jaden Blue guy. Man fumbles. I think he's a glorified speed back, pass catcher. Is what it is. You took a type. It's fine. Kept him in Texas. I love Shamar James. I love that pick so much. He might end up starting sooner rather than later because you got Overshown. He's going to be out for a little bit for a long bit with the leg injury. And then they have Kenneth Murray. Kenneth Murray's bouncing around and just hasn't been a good football player is what it is. Overall, I think a lot of the heavy lifting was done by Ezeraku and Revel. So I gave it an A- just because I love those picks so much. And I get the Tyler Booker pick. At least it made sense to me.
Yeah, I've been back and forth. I've been back and forth on if I want to give this a B or a B+, but I'm going to give it a B. I'm going to go with the shorter stick here a little bit. I like the class. I don't love the class. I don't hate the class. I think Ezeraku and, like you said, Broshmo Revel, that really helps the overall grade, especially looking back in hindsight. I like Tyler Booker. I think he's a really good player. I think he's going to be a really good prospect in the league. I think he has a high floor. I think he has a high ceiling, especially going to the Cowboys. Like, he's going to be good. It fit a need, and I'm a big fan of teams addressing that O-line. Even if you only have one hole, address that need early because, again, all offensive production starts with the offensive line. I just didn't love where they took him. I feel like you could have traded down and still have gotten him. But again, we saw how many offensive linemen were flying off the board. We saw guys that were projected to go as a second-round pick go in the first. Guys that are projected third or fourth go into the second. So maybe they thought that, hey, in hindsight from the consensus board, maybe this doesn't seem like good value. But based off of what we are hearing, this is good value, and we're going to stay here and make sure we get our guy. Like I said, love Izaraku, love Rebel. I like the blue pick as a 5th-round pick. Like I said, add speed there, take some of that pressure off of Dak Prescott, but there's also that potential of him being a liability, and that's where I like the pick, but also don't love the pick at the same time because ball security is job security at the end of the day, and this guy had a major fumbling problem. If he continues that up, this is going to be someone who doesn't last in the league very long. So I'm going to roll with a B there for the Dallas Cowboys. But let's move on here to the next team. We got the Denver Broncos, who we all thought that they were going to go offense in the first round. We thought they were for sure going to go running back in the first round. They surprisingly go with the number 1 cornerback in the class at 20 with Jahdae Barron out of Texas. Interesting move. Then they go RJ Harvey in the second. I don't know about you guys. I like Harvey. I definitely did not have Harvey pinned in as a 2nd-round pick. They get Pat Bryant, that outside receiver there in the 3rd. They go Savion Jones, the edge rusher, also in the 3rd. Some decent picks. Dose, what did you think?
Yeah, this one feels like a Denver class. I think as a Lions fan, I think that we're the Denver Broncos when I do mocks and stuff. Like all of these dudes, man, I was like, oh, that could be a Lions pick. And then we draft none of them, and then the Broncos take them all. Like, I love how this worked out. I love the fact that they just sat there and took Barron. I think he's going to fit really well in that defense. Harvey, I was a huge fan of RJ Harvey. So to me, this is perfectly fine for him. The Pat Bryant one, okay, I wonder a little bit like what's the true ceiling there, but it's going to be efficient. He's going to come and be effective, I think, especially off the last year he's coming off of. Savion Jones fits really well with, I think, the rotation they have at defensive end there. The Q Robinson had some juice. Like, I just think, and especially after they, I think they traded away one of their like outside linebackers recently. Slipping my mind right now who that was. But the point is, I think all these guys fit really well. So we'll have to see what it can really turn into here. I think the big swings that could hit is Q Robinson. And then I would also, of course, I would say Savion Jones too. I think those two could explode for this team. But for me, I think this is money. This feels great for Denver. I'm gonna go A. Yeah.
Wow. In A. Well, I'm gonna shake it up a little bit, and we're gonna see where Broshmo is, because I feel like me and Dose are on two opposite sides. I'm giving this one a B-. Like, look, I like Jahdae Barron. I think he's going to be a great player, but they have a really good 1-2 punch at cornerback in my mind. Like, I just don't understand the need of going cornerback this early on. It just doesn't make sense to me when you had much bigger needs, more specifically on offense. You need help at wide receiver. You need help at running back. And it just feels like they didn't address that. You have one of the best defenses in the NFL. And what did you do? You continued to build up that defense. So I have some question marks there. I like RJ Harvey. I think he's still developing as a running back. I didn't love the value here, but again, like, good player. It's just overall value for me. I feel like RJ Harvey too, like, he doesn't scream to me someone who's going to be that number 1 bell cow running back. He still kind of feels like a complimentary back in my own opinion. So I still have question marks about how good that running game is going to be for them. And that was their biggest question. I mean, they had the opportunity to go with like a Travion Henderson, and they just didn't. That kind of confuses me. Pat Bryant, I wasn't as big on Pat Bryant as some other people, but he's going to be that outside receiver for them. At least they added to the core. That's what they needed. They needed to add to the core, and at least they added a guy here. Savion Jones, a good developmental edge piece there for them. I'm not as big on Savion Jones as some people, but continuing to add to the trenches. And then some late round picks who, I don't really care about. Yeah, B- for me. I just don't love the thought process here. Broshmo, what do you think?
Cook this man, Broshmo. Cook him, man.
I mean, I love the Barron pick. I get it. It's like, okay, they got Riley Moss, but like, you look in the slot, McMillan's on a 1-year deal, and you get Barron, a guy that can work inside, can work outside. He can play box safety. He's just kind of a playmaker. I loved that pick. RJ Harvey, I didn't mind that because it's a good compliment to Audric, who's the Thunder. So, and I mean, I had him as more of like the early mid thirds, but I mean, that's well within the range. That's fine. I didn't love Pat Bryant as a 3rd rounder, I could see him as a Sean Payton wide receiver. He just Sean Payton's basically lettered on his forehead. It makes sense. Savion Jones, John Franklin Myers, he's a free agent. They're looking for a versatile defensive lineman that could kind of fill that role. He could maybe do it sometime in the future. Quay Robinson, you're taking a shot on some tools. Like at the end of the day, like outside of the Barron pick, it was technically all those other picks were reaches for me. Some minor, some major. I gave it a B- as well, but they drafted players I liked. So it's again, B-, not a bad grade at the end of the day.
The Pat Bryant one feels like it just feels perfect for them though. Like the receiver fit feels
literally.
So
I was like, oh, okay, Michael Thomas.
Yeah, dude, that's money. It's money for them. Perfect. You guys are crazy, by the way. Go ahead.
We're crazy.
Go ahead.
I feel like Brochville was kind of like that middle guy. He had me and Dos on his shoulders, like the devil and the angel. Like, shit, which one do I go with? But let's go ahead and let's get into the Detroit Lions, who probably had one of the worst drafts we've seen in recent history. But you know what? They go Tyreek Williams there in the first. Dos, I wasn't expecting that pick. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. They go Tate Ratledge, who I did like. I didn't like him that early there in the second, but addressing the interior of that O-line. Isaac Tesla, I mean, this was a guy we saw at the Senior Bowl. He made some good plays, but wow, boy, oh boy, did I not see him as a third-round pick there. You know what? We're just going to give the floor to Dos. I think he deserves the floor.
I mean, you have to get the floor. Real quick, though, just as Isaac Tesla, just a little shout out there. Like, this was
you literally spoke it into existence.
You did.
I was like, oh my goodness, they actually just drafted this dude. Not on the radar at all. They did it. Like we talked about it like randomly. I took him. Colby told me it was a reach, so obviously he's gonna hate this draft because they ended up going to 67 to get him.
Exactly what they did.
You told me it was a reach, and it was actually a W. That's the crazy thing about this. So a lot of people thought Tyreek was a top 10 pick, got him at 28. That's money. A lot of people thought Ratledge was a top 5 pick, got him at. I don't even know where they got him. It's incredible. But no, like I think when you step back, like the Ratledge one makes more. I wasn't as high on Ratledge either. He was just inside my top 10. But I thought like with where interior offensive line was this year, it's like, dude, you kind of got to get your guy and get out of there if you're going to do it. Especially when we saw Donovan go to Minnesota. I was just like, oh, snap. These guys are flying. These guys are not going to last. I'm fired up, though, about the Tesla one. It's just weird because he wasn't even like he was their number 3 receiver. It's like special teams. You're trying to figure it out. You're just watching flashes, and then you're kind of banking on that. But ultimately, it was the 2 picks that put it together for me because obviously I'm giving this an A+. Is
no
Miles
way.
Frazier. Of course, dude. Of course, dude. I mean,
There's no way. You're really giving this an A+.
Pull up our past drafts, all right? We can debate. Miles Frazier, and I don't know how to say my next guy's name.
Good for recent history?
Yeah, recent history. Did you know to see what we've been doing? We've been doing pretty
good.
But
we're graded this overall. Like, how was the actual draft class this year?
You can look at the past for the future. You know what I mean? But honestly, no, the Miles one was good for me because I had him guard 9. So like where they got him, I thought was perfect. And then the Ahmed one, I didn't have him. I think I had him like 21. But versus like who had gone, like he was like 3 or 4 spots above the next guy. So like those two ended up just kind of pulling it together for me as like what I really love the draft for. Like, so yeah, I mean, the Isaac Tesla one, that's probably a year away at least, but I really like those 2 picks to pull it together.
Yeah, he's going to be a really good special teamer for you and a good wide receiver for. So definitely worth that 3rd round pick there. Broshma, what'd you think?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't have problems with the players. It was the trades. The trades were awful, in my opinion. And it's not crazy. Like, I love Tate Rat. Apparently, I was higher on Tate Ratledge. I had him at 65 on my big board. They get him at 57, no problem. Except for you turned a 4th into a 7th. Like, yeah, okay, 30. That felt much to move up 3 spots for Tate Ratledge.
Stop. Wait, we gotta address something, Colby. Colby, see, here's where we're different though. Just real quick, because I like what Russell said. The Patriots, everybody you draft could be a starter, right? But the Lions, there's only a couple spots to start it. There's not a lot of roles here, so you got to go get your guys, Colby.
But value is still a thing. Even if you're a good or bad team, like value, you know what I'm saying? Like at least get picks for next year.
All right, Colby, go ahead. My bad, man. Broshpo, go ahead. My bad.
That's crazy.
So the Tesla trade, golly, dude, I get it. Okay, well, they're comp picks next year. There's still 2 third-round picks on top of the one that you use this year to move up. That's still a lot for Tesla, who, again, not high on my board. You're betting on he's going to be a better pro than college player. Like, I didn't mind them if they didn't move up for him. It's like, okay, fine, you're taking shots on the traits. But it was a hefty price. It was a hefty price. All in all, I really like who they drafted. Tyleek Williams made a ton of sense to me with Aleem McNeil going to be out for the beginning of the year. Reader's on a 1 year. Enrique's only back for another year. That made sense to me. Ratledge made sense. He's going to be able to compete for a starting job early. Miles Frazier, I love too. That was, to me, their best value pick in the whole draft class. The Boise State edge is he's a Dan Campbell guy. Big motor, very strong, going to get after it. Super gritty. Made sense. At the end of the day, though, those trades suck. And I'm not going to bet against Brad Holmes, but I can at least say those trades weren't great. I gave it a C+.
Yeah, we had to get cooked on the value chart. There's no doubt we got cooked on the value chart. We don't use the value chart. We have our own value chart.
I gave it a B-, and I'm gonna be honest, I think that's me being very generous.
Oh my goodness. Here we go.
I didn't want Dose to fall into a depression. So I was like, if I start with a C, like, based off of how their season just went and the fact that they got cooked in the postseason, like, you know what I'm saying?
Nah, Colby, don't hit your
I didn't want you to be sad. So
see out there. Let the people know.
I didn't want you to be sad. So I gave it a B-, and that was generous. I just didn't love the picks. I wasn't as big on Tyleek Williams as some other people. I like Tate Ratledge. Like I said, maybe a tad early, but I did like him. I didn't hate Isaac Tesla. I just definitely didn't like him in the 3rd round. It was just, it was all right.
You hated Isaac Tesla. It's cool, man.
I like him. Cool, the Patriots were linked back to him, but I was like, okay. Hey, yo, this is like a later round guy that I'm gonna pick up. Not like we're gonna take him. We're gonna take him in our first 3 rounds, and he's gonna be a damn cornerstone to our team. Like, I don't know about that. But all right. But let's go. Let's speed things up a little bit here. Yeah. Getting into the Green Bay Packers, they go Matthew Golden in the 1st, Anthony Belton in the 2nd, Savion Williams in the 3rd, Baron Sorrell, the edge rusher there in the 4th. Broshma, what were your thoughts?
I love the Matthew Golden pick. Finally, they listened to Josh Jacobs get a wide receiver 1. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers was rolling in his grave or wherever he may be when he saw that happen. Anthony Belton, this was a little higher than I thought he might go, but I like the value. I think he's probably going to be maybe a tackle of the future, probably left for Walker. Or at least that's ideally what's going to happen. After that, I felt like they reached on a ton of players. Savion Williams, I wasn't that high on. Don't really know what he's going to do outside of big body vertical threat. You got Colin Oliver, who's a bit of a tweener. Baron Sorrell, who I like a lot, limited length. At the end of the day, I gave it a B-. I really like the Golden pick. I like Belton a ton, but after that, there wasn't really a lot to really sink my teeth into.
Yeah, I gave this one a B. I like Matthew Golden. I like that pick for them. He's somebody, though, that I think he has a high ceiling. I don't know about a low floor. He never put up 1,000 yards at the collegiate level. He really burst onto the scenes during the pre-draft process. He just hasn't proved a lot, transitioning to the NFL. So I do have some question marks about him for sure. But like you said, they need a wide receiver. They went out and they got that potential weapon. I do like the Anthony Belton pick. I like addressing the offensive line, really just trying to upgrade this offense. You got the Philadelphia Eagles that you're going to be going up against every single year. Like, if you want to get to a Lombardi right now, it goes through Philly, and you're going to need a high firepowered offense if you're going to get past them. I even like the Baron Sorrell pick there in the 4th as like that developmental edge. That was someone like the Patriots were linked back to, so I did a good amount of work on him. And then after that, they were okay picks. So I feel pretty confident with that grade. What do you think, Dose?
I feel like their picks are going to work best for them. Like they have a pretty good ability to make these guys work in the draft. They're pretty good at what they do, and I think the Savion one, like that's what they're going to hand him the football a lot. Like this is one of the teams that actually will give the football to their receivers.
That's true.
So it's like, all right, this does make sense. I mean, if there's a team that's going to get something out of it, the Golden one was necessary with Watson's injury. So, and it was pretty amazing. Like in Green Bay to take a receiver, it was pretty awesome. And I like the Colin Oliver one. I like the swing there. Again, you're trying to figure out 3-down upside for sure, but I kind of like the swing. Someone that's just going to get after, especially in this stage of the draft. I'm not mad at it, but I didn't love it, right, for a prospect spot, but I do like the fits for them. So I go C+.
C+. All right. Moving on here to the Houston Texans. Boy, oh boy, Dude, I feel like they had an underrated draft. My God. You go Jaden Higgins, man. Jaden Higgins in the second round. I like it. You go Ariante Ursary. You get the last tackle left on the board. That is a day one starter. I like it. What do? You go back to wide receiver because Tank Dell, he's not playing for you this season. Who knows? I'm not wishing this, but Tank Dell got so damn injured this past year that can that dude really return to football? It's going to be a miracle if he can. So what do? They double down. They get Jalen Knoll out of Iowa State. Good value here. And they're pairing up Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll. So that chemistry is right there already. I really like that. Jalen Smith's not a bad pick. I'm going to be honest with you guys. After that, Woody Marks isn't terrible. After that, I didn't love the draft. But those first few picks that they had, I was a big fan of that offense in terms of weapons, the O-line. That's what you needed to build around for CJ Stroud. They already have a monster defense, and I feel pretty confident about the Houston Texans' ability to compete heading into next season. Broshma, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I liked it. They were, you saw Donovan Jackson go off the board right before you. So you're like, okay, let's get out of Dodge. Let's acquire an extra third in this year's class, a third in next year's class. I like that. You get Jaden Higgins. Kind of feels more of the same with Nico Collins, but I don't hate it. I don't mind it. I like that as a wide receiver duo. And then you pair him back up with his teammate, Jalen Knoll. Okay, there's the speed. I like what they did there. You have Ursary, who's going to be a developmental player there, whether it's a guard or tackle. That made sense to me. Things got fishy at the end there with Jalen Smith. I was like, okay, that's higher than where I had him. But you know what? Corner, it's a volatile position. It's never bad to go depth. I like Woody Marks. They moved up for him. They gave away a third next year. That made no sense to me. I didn't think Woody Marks was that sought after. I thought you could have probably got him in the mid rounds. They move up. I didn't love that. Low key, I think Luke Lachey could end up being a big money pick because like Dalton Schultz aged like 20 years this year. I don't know why. That dude looked slow as hell. So at the end of the day, it's a good draft. I gave it a B. Would have been higher again if things just got a little weird at the back end of the third, early fourth round.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, my grade was a B+, so it wasn't too off from where Broshma was. What were your thoughts, Dose?
I would have liked to see them get an interior lineman. Like, I know I'm not trying to go needs here, but I would like
to. They wanted to.
And they did.
It got snagged. You got to play how the board falls to you.
This is true. No, this is true. I would have just like instead of Jalen Smith, like I would have liked to see. I know it's tackle, but I would like to see him grab Charles Grant, tie him with Ursary. I would have liked to see that. Just see what it turns.
That would have been nice. I agree.
I think that he would have couple picks after, but ultimately, like I did like the back end a lot here. Obviously, I was huge on Jalen Reed, so I like that a lot. Mertz, there's not much to go with there. I mean, he's going to be a backup, but I did like the back end, right? Hamilton feels like he could stick around. They need interior help, so he could make it work just because of his path into that role, and he did show some things at Rutgers. So for me, I actually kind of like the back end of this one. I'm going to roll A- when you consider what they were able to acquire too.
A-. All right, Dose.
Hey, they got
your grades have been interesting so far. I'm interested. I want to hear about the thought process later, but let's move on here to the Colts. The Colts had Tyler Warren absolutely fall in their laps, tight end out of Penn State in the first. We know that Derek was praying to God for this one, and it exactly happened just the way that he was predicting it was going to. I'm going to be honest, I didn't love this draft for them. I love the Tyler Warren pick. Outside of that, I didn't think it was like a crazy good draft for them. Brosh, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, it felt like they got Tyler Warren and then they quit. Like, I get JT Tuimoloau. That's a solid pick. He was rumored to go higher than expected. I'm sure Derek loves it. But after that, Justin Wally, I did a video days earlier on my like top 10 sleepers for the third or for day 3. Justin Wally was in that video. Mm-hmm. And he goes at pick 80. That I was like, okay, maybe I was more on the nose than I thought. Jalen Travis, he's long. Okay, cool. Fun. Giddens was probably their best pick outside of their first 2 picks. But after that, it's like, why would you go get Riley Leonard? Why would you get Danny Dimes 2.0? Danny Dimes light. Why would you do that? That makes no sense to me. At the end of the day, hey, cool. You got your top 2 players there with Warren and Tuimoloau. I gave it a B-. Didn't love what they did after that.
Yeah, I also had given it a B- just for the record. Dose, what was your grade?
I just think the value is whack on some of these picks straight up.
Yeah.
Tyler Warren was pretty cool to have him just sit there, man. But after that, I'm like, all right, I feel like JT, I thought was high. Justin, I thought was high. I mean, like he was again below guys that had like round 5, round 6. DJ Giddens was fun, and I liked Tim Smith a lot. So I think that one hit. Go round 6, that's fine. But I thought the value was off for a lot of these. So B-.
Oh, wow. We all went B-. We're all on the same page, guys. Let's freaking go. Now, let's talk here about the Jacksonville Jags, right? Because they made that big trade up there for Travis Hunter. And boy, oh boy, I don't know if you guys have seen, but the Jags' entire identity is Travis Hunter. Literally, their TikTok profile is a picture of Travis Hunter. The last 10 videos are of Travis Hunter. Literally, Travis Hunter is Jacksonville now. So, I mean, I guess there's that. They went out, they got their player, but they better damn well hope that this works out for them. They get Caleb Rainstraw there, cornerback there in the second. Wyatt Milam in the third. That's a player that I really like, guard and tackle versatility. And I thought it was an okay draft. For them. I gave them a B. That was my overall grade for them. They made some good picks early on, but after that, didn't love what they did. I thought there were some mid picks, but nothing jumps off the board outside of like Travis Hunter, Rainstraw, and Wyatt Milam. Dos, what were your thoughts?
I like some of the. I feel like they got some like dogs mixed in here a little bit specifically. Like the Lane one was kind of messy, but there's like enough like there like that flashes athletically that you get kind of excited about. Just kind of playing the weird. He's like a 3 safety defense all the time. The Ransall one felt early, but you like him because again, I think he tested incredibly well. If I remember correctly, I think he tested incredibly well. It just kind of felt early for me, just from consistency. Wyatt Milam, it's like, all right, are they going to move him around a little bit? I know we all kind of, at least you, Colby. I think you liked him. So
I did.
I like what they got. I feel like they got some juice. Jack Kaiser's got some juice too. I mean, this guy. I mean, I think you can get after the quarterback a little bit as well. So I like what they did, in terms of some of the athleticism, but I don't know how many they actually hit on here, which is kind of the weird spot. So I'm gonna roll B-. What
were your thoughts, Broshmo?
Yeah, I mean, you basically pay a quarterback's premium to get Travis Hunter. He might be the two-way player for him. Regardless, he's become the face of the organization. So, yeah, I didn't mind that. I didn't mind taking a shot on a generational-esque. I know that gets thrown around, but I mean, we've never seen a two-way player like this before, so kind of warrants it. Wyatt Milam, I think, is a low-key good pick. I think he might end up being a starter by the end of the year. And like you said, like there was some late-day value they got. Like Jonah Monheim, I like as a potential center of the future. Like he might not be the strongest guy, might not have like the longest arms, but he's got that dog in him. LaQuint Allen, I mean, I know they got Tuden, they got the speed, but LaQuint Allen on passing downs, whether it's in pass protection or as a receiver, he brings that upside, and he's got that length to be a good pass catcher too. So I give it a B+. Ultimately, I like what they did. If you're going to move up and take a swing on Travis Hunter, then I thought the rest of the draft kind of panned out well enough for you.
Yeah, I agree.
I think looking at where you got picked, by the way, like let's throw that in there. Back into the third. I mean, that feels pretty good.
Oh, yeah, we got more teams left than I thought. All right, guys. So we're already at the hour mark. So real quick, let's just give our grades for these teams. Now, there's 2 teams that I actually want to hear your guys' thoughts on, and that's the Patriots and that's the Dolphins. So when we get to those, we'll give our quick analysis on them. But for these other teams, let's just real quick give our grade. Broshmo, what grade did you give the Kansas City Chiefs?
I gave them an A-. They picked a lot of players that I liked, maybe earlier than I expected. But Jalen Royals, well, golly, what a steal!
Yeah, I'd given them I'd given them a B+. I like some of their moves, but Josh Simmons, when is he going to be able to play? Some character concerns and whatnot. But yeah, confident B+, but I can see where you give an A-. What about you, Dos?
B-, but it's all going to work. Ormar Numalat's going to work. His team, I mean, Bass is going to work. It's all going to work. Josh Simmons is going to be great. B-.
Wow, B-. Okay, moving on here to the Chargers. Amari Hampton, Trey Harris there in the second. Kyle Kennard. Broshman, what'd you give this one?
I gave it a B. Cool. You got some playmakers. Kyle Kennard's really good value. Yeah, I mean, they grabbed a lot of players right where I had them at. So I was like, yeah, it's fine. It's solid. It's good. It never feels good to take a run back in the first round, though.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I do love Amari Hampton. I feel like he was someone who did deserve to go in the first round. I actually gave this a B+. I like some of their picks. The Trey Harris pick, though, maybe a little bit too soon. But, other than that, I think they made some decent picks. But as the board goes down, maybe some questionable decisions. What about you, Dos? What was your grade?
A-. I love the Jamari Caldwell pick. I thought that was absolute money at that spot. and then the Orande, get like the receiving tight end. Like that one was wild to me. I'm curious to see what that turns into. A-.
All right, A-. Moving on here to the Los Angeles Rams. They really didn't make a whole lot of picks. Jarquez Hunter there in the 4th, Josiah Stewart in the 3rd, Terrence Ferguson, the tight end, in the 2nd after they traded out of the 1st. Brushmo, what was your grade on them?
I give them a B-. They moved back, so limited picks. It was kind of hard to give them a high grade, but Ferguson makes sense. Athletic tight end. Josiah Stewart's a good fit. Jarquez Hunter left my head scratching. Like, okay. You already took Blake Corum. You got Kyron Williams, but all right. But Chris Paul, what a steal.
Yeah,
it's going to be a good pick.
Yeah, I gave them a C+. It was all right. I understand they didn't have a lot of picks, but still, they could have maneuvered around the board a little bit better, taken some better players. I gave it a C+. Dose, what would you give them?
Yeah, I really like their first 5. I mean, I feel pretty good about most of them. I'm going to roll like a B+ here. I think Ferguson feels like to me like the Gerald Everett kind of piece, or the Higbee. Like, just get the ball in their hands, let them run after the catch. Open it more up in the NFL. That's kind of my sense there.
Dose, I feel like you always go opposite. I feel like I take left music. I give it a C+.
Oh, dang, you're just a hater. That's what that is.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. Moving on to the Raiders here. They get Ashton Genty, then they go Jack Besh. They get Darian Porter in the 3rd. They made low-key some pretty good moves. Brushmo, what would you give this?
I gave it an A. I loved everything they did. The only one that I didn't particularly like was Caleb Rogers. That was a little higher than where I had him, but I like going with the offensive line. They take Charles Grant right after that. So I'm cool. I love all the picks.
Yeah, I gave this one an A-. I think for the majority of their picks, especially early on, kind of reach into that midsection too. They got players where you can kind of see the value, you can kind of see the role. As they get later here, I don't love some of these players, but again, at that point, you're just kind of taking a shot diamond in the rough. So, like I said, for me, A-. What do you think, Dose?
I'm gonna go C+. Again, I like the Charles Grant one.
Wow,
and Jack Besh one is awesome too, but I don't buy into a ton of these guys. I like Lindenberg at the end. That's fun.
C+. All right, Dose. And you say I'm the hater. That's kind of crazy.
That's
kind
they would give
of
themselves
crazy.
a C+.
All right, now moving on here to the Miami Dolphins. Broshman, would love to get your thoughts on this. Kenneth Grant in the 1st, Jonas Salvanea there in the 2nd, Jordan Phillips in the 5th there. You get Ollie Gordon in the 6th. You get Quinn Ewers in the 7th. That maybe was your best pick, be honest with you, your best value pick overall. Broshman, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it made sense. Obviously, they hate their trenches. They were like, we need to be ready for the winter. Winter is coming. Come on, Kenneth Grant. So I didn't mind Kenneth Grant at that pick. I thought we kind of paid a premium to get Jonas Salvanea. He probably wouldn't have been on the board for us, but we gave up our 3rd and 4th. So
had to jump the Patriots.
Yeah, apparently. But I mean, it was a bitter pill to swallow. But that was the one player I wanted us to come out of the draft with. So I guess I don't mind it too much. Jordan Phillips, he's going to need some development, but he's at least bare minimum, high floor run stuffer. We waited late to address the secondary. Our secondary is going to be a hot mess. Trader, cool. I like him. Former lacrosse player. Jason Marshall, awesome. Is what it is. Secondary is it's gonna suck. I gave us a B- at the end of the day. I like the Ollie Gordon pick. Obviously, we want to be better in the winter. He could help with that. Quinn Ewers, I didn't mind taking a shot on him. Whatever. Is what it is. It was 7th round. Why not?
Yeah, I also gave it a B-. What'd you give it, Dose? You gonna give it an A+?
No, definitely not an A+. What was Bro's grade? What'd you say your grade was? You said it. You said it was a B-.
I said B-.
Yeah, we both had a B- on it.
Man, I'm curious to see what Phillips turns into here with Dante Trader. I think Dante Trader could be real sneaky where you.
Yeah, he's a dog. I like him. I like him more than Jason Marshall.
I don't know, man. Like this is a patient draft. It feels like here for me. I'm gonna go with a C.
That's wow. Yeah. That's all right. That's I saw people giving them an A-. I was like, all right, yeah. People are losing their jobs here. All right, real quick. What are we giving the Minnesota Vikings here? Donovan Jackson in the 1st, Ty Felton in the 3rd, Kobe King, probably their best pick here in the 6th. You straight up, I'm be honest with you guys. I gave this one a C-. What'd you think, Broshmo?
Yeah, I gave it a C. I was big on the why didn't you trade back? And I know people were like, oh, they really like Donovan Jackson. Yeah, he's a good player, but why not trade back? Oh, you don't know what the organization, you don't know who was calling him. I was like, there were literally trades at 25 and 26. You can't tell me no one was calling Minnesota Vikings. But I like Jackson. I like Felton. I like a couple of players they got on day 3. But yeah, I gave it a C. I don't agree with the process.
What was your thoughts, Dose?
I thought Ingram Dawkins was forced in a little bit there, trying to get younger on the defensive line. That's where I was off with it. I guess some people really like him. I don't as much, but I like the top 2. I really like the next 3 of the next 4, like the Donovan, Ty, and King. I like all those 4 of this team. I think they can all have an impact. So, B+.
Wow. All right. B+. Interesting.
I like Donovan. I think he finishes at offensive line, and that's been a mess for him.
Interesting. Well, going on here to the Patriots, who had 11 picks. I'm going to start this one off. This one for me, A+. I was between an A and an A+. I think the only questionable maybe decisions for them is, you took a lawn snapper, but they released Joe Cardona, so they needed a lawn snapper. It was reported by Mike Garafolo, I want to say it was, that multiple teams were targeting Julian Ashby as UDFA, so the Patriots used a late 7th round pick to make sure that they solidified in getting him. Andreas Borgalis, that's another like controversial pick, air quote, but he was the projected best kicker in this draft. He's money. He kicked from 65 at his pro day. He was one of the best players at the Miami Hurricanes pro day there, period. Patriots needed a kicker. They spent a 6th round pick on arguably the best kicker in the draft. I thought really, really good value on Braden Swinson, who was projected as more like a 2nd round guy. I know some people had him as more of a 3rd, but still nonetheless in the 5th round, really, really good value. They get Will Campbell, who, by the way, Patriots couldn't trade down. There was no available package there that was brought towards them to be able to trade down. They get Will Campbell, who is an absolute dog, best offensive lineman in the class. They needed help at left tackle. I think that's exactly what they're getting. Cried after he was drafted, by the way, and said, I'm going to die for this team. I'm going to die for my quarterback. So he's not just helping the Patriots from a physical standpoint, but from a mental and leadership standpoint, going to help them significantly. Surprising pick with Travion Henderson there in the 2nd, but this was a guy that had hype as a back end of the 1st round selection. So I actually think this is good value for the Patriots. His top speed this past year at Ohio State was 22 miles per hour. That would have ranked 3rd amongst running backs in the NFL this past season. Really, really good complimentary back to Ramondre Stevenson, and one of the best running backs in pass protection, which I think is going to help out Drake May a boat ton. Kyle Williams, pretty good value here too. I think he's going to do really well in learning behind Stephon Diggs. He's going to bring a lot of juice. One of the best wide receivers in this draft class against man coverage. Jared Wilson, the projected best center in this class. Patriots released David Andrews. They needed help there. They solidified that offensive line. Craig Woodson, really, really smart free safety. Again, maybe a little bit too soon, but other than that, I think the Patriots this entire draft went best player available. They got really, really good value, even with Joshua Farmer. So for me, A+. What did you think, Broshmo?
Yeah, I gave out 4 A+ grades when it came to the draft. The Patriots were one of them. I get it. Will Campbell would have been nice if you could trade back. It is what it is. Protect Drake May. Apparently, Jonas Avenue was supposed to be pick 38. He goes at 37. I think Henderson's a hell of a consolation prize. Golly, talk about getting some excitement, especially with Kyle Williams. Golly, another one of my favorite receivers. I think Jared Wilson's going to be a nice player eventually. The only other pick the only pick I didn't like was Craig Woodson. I wasn't that high on him compared to other people, and I feel like y'all already kind of have a stacked safety room at the moment, so I didn't really see the point in that one. But Farmer, Swinson, exceptional value. It was a good draft.
Yeah, the only reason that I think you kind of see Craig Woodson potentially having an immediate role is just because they don't have like a real free safety. Now, they brought in some guys there like Hawkins who they can play free safety, but they're very average. Patriots have had a big time trouble, in the back end of that secondary with blown coverages and whatnot. So, I think that Woodson can kind of come in and be the best free safety you've had since Devin McCourty, which has been a low-key big need for this team. So, again, didn't maybe love the value where it was, but you can kind of at least understand the pick. Dose, what were your thoughts? Be smart here now. Be smart.
Yeah, I mean, first off, Kobe's out here lying. All right, nobody's taking a long snapper, bro. Yeah, you didn't know who to pick. Drafted a long snapper. That's insane. Yeah, Kobe,
it was a priority UDFA.
You drafted a long snapper. That's insane. First
we didn't have one. We needed a long snapper. Do you want bot snaps? Do you want bot snaps, Dose?
I'll snap for him. All right, I got you, Kobe. This is crazy, but no. Like, I feel like you got the guys at the right spots, but I think is what was really good to hear. Like, even though I had some ups and downs with Kyle, I think where you got him around 3 was good. The Swinson one was absolute money. I thought that was an A+. Like, I love Braden Swinson, so I was shocked that happened. And even Farmer, I was a little bit lower on, but ultimately, I think it's a great spot to get him. So ultimately, it's an F. But you got no, I actually really like it. It's a It's an A. It's an A or
It's
an
an
A
A
plus.
plus.
I think it's great.
Oh,
I think
it's an A
great.
plus, man. I like that.
It's an A.
I like
It's not
that.
an A plus for the long
All
time.
right, it's an A plus. Moving on here to the Saints. They go Kelvin Banks in the first, which I think is a smart move. Ultimately, that's exactly what they should have done. Other than that, they made some decent picks. I mean, Jonas Sanker, that's a guy that I liked, but I think they're, Malik Mustafa, who I know Broshmo, you were pretty high on in the pre-draft rankings there. They get him in the 7th as a developmental guy. I liked that pick. Wasn't super blown away with it. I gave it a B minus. What about you, Broshmo?
I give it a B. I like the Banks pick. Tyler Shuck, if you want to take a quarterback, cool. That's fine, as long as he didn't trade up for it. I feel like the Saints next year are just going to run out Shuck, and if it's bad, then cool. They're going to be picking in the top 5, top 10, and they'll take a quarterback there. But all in all, they picked a lot of players I liked. Stutzman, Sanker, Riley, Neal. Yeah, it was a good draft.
What'd you think, Dose?
Yeah, a lot of singles, right? A lot of like solid pieces here. Don't know if I love a lot of them, but I like a lot of it. What they did. And the Calvin Banks one could really hit. I think it makes sense to go O-line early. So I don't know. I like Sanker, Stutzman, Riley. That's a strong. And then you put Devin Neal in there. That's a strong. Even Broughton for this team. Like I could see the fit for sure there. I'm gonna roll B.
B.
It's gonna be B.
All right.
Yeah.
Pretty solid. Moving on here to the New York Giants. They go Abdul Carter. Then they trade back into the first and get Jackson Dart. No second-round pick. Then they go Darius Alexander, Cam Scatabo. Marcus Mabo is a really, really good pick for them. Honestly, I thought they hit this one out of the park for the most part with obviously pretty much limited picks. I'm giving this one an A for the New York Giants. What about you, Broshmo?
Yeah, I give it an A just because you didn't screw it up. You didn't sacrifice Abdul Carter for Jackson Dart. That was kind of the big thing. And you were still able to grab Dart. But they made some good picks after that, like Alexander, Scatabo, Bo, even Fedone. Black's going to be a good press corner for him. So, yeah, A.
What about you, Dose?
I'm rolling A plus on this one. This
wow,
one
all right.
Fantastic. Yeah, I like this. Even Alexander I thought was going to go earlier than I would have liked him, but I think where they end up getting him, and then Scatabo in the 4th. Come on now, dude. This is money. This is an A plus.
All righty, A plus. So we got A and A plus. Pretty good draft there by the Giants. Much needed. Moving on here to the New York Jets. They go Armand Membu, A plus pick. That's exactly what they should have done. Mason Taylor, questionable maybe scheme fit. Azarie Thomas there in the 3rd. I liked Malachi Moore there in the 4th. I did not like Arian Smith in the 4th, though. Wide receiver. I think that was the worst pick. To me, that is an F just straight up for them. I gave them on the AFC's roundtable, I gave them a B. You could even say a B minus. So somewhere between like a B to B minus is where I'm at. What about you, Broshmo?
Yeah, no, they made the worst pick in the NFL draft by taking Arian Smith. Get this man on Jugs machine right now. He is just speed. He caught some balls at the Senior Bowl, though. I think Malachi Moore, low-key, could be a really good pick. Good veteran player there at Alabama. I thought their first 3 picks made sense. Tyler Barron, I thought was really good value. Kind of feels like a Michael Clemens type pick where, he's going to produce more than what you would think for a 5th or 6th rounder. So I give it a B.
All right, what about you, Dose?
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Tyler Barron a lot where they stuck him in there. I feel like the edge kind of fell off to me, at least after that. And I think the first 2, the way you go offense tackle then tight end was smart this year. And they played that off right. And then Thomas is going to fit well, I think, with Aaron Glenn. I think that's going to be money. So I'm going to go B plus.
B plus. All right. So we got about a B to B minus, and then we got a B, and then we got a B plus here for the New York Jets. Moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles, I feel like we don't really got to say much. It's always a home run by the Philadelphia Eagles. So I feel like we all probably have about an A, somewhere like an A plus, A minus. Kind of great. I feel like we all kind of have somewhere in there. Jahad Campbell falls to them there in the 1st round. Then Andrew Makuba, I thought that was a really good pick. Ty Robinson, interior defensive lineman. They got the developmental quarterback in the 6th with Kyle McCord. Overall, I'm giving this one an A for the Philadelphia Eagles. What about you, Broshmo?
Yeah, I gave it an A minus. They kept trading back, getting more picks, and took a lot of players that I liked. Makuba, I love Makuba. I do think, Kevin Winston's there and Xavier Watts is there, but Makuba was my safety 5. I'm not mad about it. Anything like, dude, Cameron Williams late was nice. Kyle McCord's going to be a nice backup eventually, and they still got Tanner McKee. So, yeah, no, I give it an A minus. Good draft, Howie.
What about you, Dose?
I think McWilliams is going to work pretty well there. That's the one I'm keeping my eye on. And then Yeah, I think he's going to fit in really well. And then the Mondon Jr. one, like, okay, he's an athlete, man. That dude's going to fly around for this defense. So I'm not like mad at it, I guess, for where they got it, where their roster is at. I like the upside with a lot of these swings. I think Powell Ryland at the end, I mean, he might make the team. He has a back end shot. I mean, he's surprised, but he could. I'm going to go A-.
A-. All right. Moving on here to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They go Derek Harmon there in the first, man. There were videos about Steelers fans who thought they were going Shador, and boy, oh boy, were those funny. They go Caleb Johnson in the third. They go Jack Sawyer in the fourth. I actually, for the most part, like this. Will Howard there in the sixth round. I think that's a really good developmental quarterback for them. I'm going B+ here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What about you, Broshmo?
I'm right there. B+. I always take into account, okay, well, that second rounder was DK, so kind of makes up for it. Sawyer is going to be interesting. He's going to be a good rotation player. I don't think he's anything more than that, but he's going to come in and he's going to fight for you. Derek Harmon, I love that pick a ton for the Steelers.
Love it. What about you, Dose? Did you like it?
Yeah, I think it's an A, man. I think this defense is nasty, and I think all these guys fit in really well.
I like it. Good for the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. They might not still have that future quarterback, but at least they're building up everywhere else. As for the Seattle Seahawks, I think they make the pick we all saw coming with Gray Zabel in the first. Guard tackle versatility, projected to be an interior offensive lineman. Nick Emenwari there in the second round. That safety, Elijah Arroyo, goes in the second round. Now, I know there was a lot of hype about him going in the second. His draft stock was raising. I didn't love him in the second, me personally, but I do think he has the developmental traits. Jalen Milroe there in the third is your developmental quarterback. Overall, I didn't love some of the picks as you go on, but I gave this one a B. I gave this one a B. You could even say a B+, but I thought it was a pretty good overall draft there for the Seahawks. What do you think, Broshmo?
This was one of my A+. I love their draft. Ooh. Zabel, phenomenal. Great scheme fit. Even if you go to Cable Dew, he's probably going to play guard. He's a good scheme fit too. The dude can move. And training up for Nick Emenwari, golly, get your Kyle Hamilton. You go, Mike McDonald. There we go. I almost called him Mike McDaniel. Nope. We have the offensive guy. Jalen Milroe, straight up. That was the third round pick you got back from Geno. So developmental quarterback, perfect. Guys like Riley Mills and Torrey Horton were phenomenal value. And then Damian Martinez was good value. Ricky White was good value. I loved the class.
What'd you think, Dose?
Yeah, the Damian Martinez one's the standout to me. I mean, this is a good running back group, but the attention will be Torrey Horton here. I just like the Riley Mills one. That's the one where I'm just like, this is a good spot getting him in round 5 for this defense. Like, he'll make an impact. And then Milroe, I don't know what that's going to turn into. Maybe just hand him the ball a few times. Like, whatever, dude. Just hand him the ball. It's going to be fun. I'm going to go B+.
B+.
Wait 10 years. Maybe he's Geno Smith.
Moving on here to the San Francisco 49ers, they had Michael Williams there at 11. Liked Michael Williams, maybe a little bit too soon for me personally, but a lot of developmental traits with him only being 20. They double down on the D-line. They go Alfred Collins. Let's just start with you, Broshmo. What was your grade?
So I gave it a B- because they drafted players I liked, just maybe not necessarily. Some were kind of reaches. Michael Williams made sense to me. You're going to throw him next to Nick Bosa. Things will turn out well. I like the Alfred Collins pick a lot. Gets that heft in the middle. Nick Martin, love the player. I didn't like him as a third rounder. Just kind of limited in terms of height and length. Upton Stout, love the player. Didn't necessarily like him as a third rounder, but CJ West kind of makes up for that in the fourth round. Jordan Watkins kind of felt like, okay, this is Jacob Cowan all over again. What are we doing here? But it is what it is. Jordan James, though, he is built for a Shanahan system. So, yeah, I gave it a B-. Like a lot of the players, maybe didn't love where they went.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I even like the Nick Martin pick there at linebacker. So I think they made some good picks early on. Deep draft class. They obviously made a lot of picks, but I feel like outside of the first couple, they were just kind of mid. So I give it a B-. What do you think, Dose?
I think it was a lot more. I personally feel like a lot of these were fit over the player, actually, for me. Like, I love the Jordan James one. I think that's money. They found their future in Curtis Rourke, so that's exciting. But outside of that, like, I mean, I guess that should be an A+ if that's the case. But like the Connor Colby one, like, I guess they're picking it back in the 7th round. I'm just not a big Connor Colby guy, but he fits what they're trying to do. They're not trying to be disrespectful. I mean, I like the top. I love Michael Williams. I think that's a fine spot to get him. I just like the Upton Stout one. Like, that's a perfect example where it's like, I get the Nick Martin, what they need there. The Upton Stout one, I just thought was too high. I mean, Upton Stout's fine. He's fun to watch. I wouldn't draft him in round 3. So, yeah, I mean, they got to hit. They've been hit and miss with the draft. I'm gonna go C+.
Yeah, I would have liked to see them have tried to address tackle also, at least somewhere, and they didn't really do that. As for the Buccaneers, they surprisingly take wide receiver Emeka Egbuka, which I don't think any of us saw coming. Then they get Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback out of Notre Dame, there in the second. They double down at cornerback and get Jacob Parrish, who's projected to be one of the best slot cornerbacks in this class. They finally address the D-line with David Walker and Elijah Roberts in the 4th and 5th round, and they get Tez Johnson in the 7th, who I don't think anybody saw Tez Johnson falling that far, so pretty good value there. Personally, didn't love that they didn't go defense in the first round and really try to address the trenches a little bit more. Broshma, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, ultimately, I gave it a A just because I don't think they made a bad pick. Like all the players I really like a lot. I mean, Emeka Buka, yeah, it's like, okay, well, you have Chris Godwin, you just paid him, and then you just paid Mike Evans last year. You saw good things from McMillan. Is what it is. Benjamin Morrison could be an absolute dog if he's healthy. Jacob Parrish probably going to be in the slot. I like that quite a bit. And I mean, David Walker, he was kind of my guy. If he wasn't 25, he'd go earlier. But
yeah,
it is what it is.
What were your thoughts, Dose?
I'm with you. I think they drafted dogs across the board. I think I don't like Elijah Roberts as much, but I'm glad they took a swing on Tez Johnson. I think that's a lot of fun with 2 receivers there. I'd love to see what that's going to turn into. But yeah, having Parrish in there and kind of how they've just been like rotating, like is he in playing safety and then playing the nickel? Like this may just kind of clear up all the question marks going forward. This feels like an A.
Yeah, I gave it a B personally. I think I liked their UDFA class in terms of value a little bit more, but you can understand some of the value, but I mean, this is a team that spends so much money on offense in free agency. You needed to go heavy on defense in the draft, and it just feels like they continued with their most important pick to add on that offensive side of the football. So definitely some concerns for their defense rolling into next year. But moving on here to the Tennessee Titans, they obviously go Cam Ward in the 1st. They go Aladejo there in the 2nd. They go Kevin Winston, the safety, there in the 3rd. I like Gunnar Helm there in the 4th. Also, Alec Ayomanor going there in the 4th. Overall, I'm going to give this one a B+. I even thought about an A-, but those other picks I'm not as big on. So I'm going to give this one a B+. What did you think, Broshmo?
This was my other A+. You got a franchise change in quarterback, hopefully in Cam Ward. And then the trade back is so money. They didn't have that 3rd, and they turned it into Femi Aladejo, who blew up the Senior Bowl. And then Kevin Winston Jr., who was my safety 3. I love that. DK was okay. That's a little high, but then you can make up for it by taking Ayomanor much later, apparently. I was a big Jackson Slater dude. I thought he impressed me a ton at the Senior Bowl. I think maybe he could be a long-term answer at either center or guard. And Marcus Harris was also my guy, whether he ends up playing safety or slot outside. I think he's just going to be an absolute dog for this team.
What do you think, Dose?
Yeah, the only one I don't like is Oladejo. I just feel like that even how they acquired, I'm just not a big Oladejo guy. But Kevin Winston's money. I think Jackson Slater's fantastic. I think this is for where you're getting him. Like maybe he's a starter, maybe he's not, but I think you're going to end up getting really good value out of that pick. I like sliding in Khalil Mullings to the end there. Kind of led the way for Michigan this past year. So, and I like the value at receiver. I wasn't super high on Ellick, but when you get him at the bottom of round 4, like, all right, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I thought the value was really good in a lot of these spots. I just didn't like the Oladejo one a ton there. So for me, it drops it to like a B+.
Fair. I agree with that assessment. But moving on here to the final team, the Washington Commanders. Josh Connerly there in the 1st. Some people didn't love that. I actually did. I think it makes a lot of sense when you watch that NFC Championship game against the Eagles. Again, it runs through Philly. You are going to need a good offensive line in order to keep Jaden Daniels upright. So addressing the trenches, I'm never going to go against. They add some help there at corner to solidify that secondary with Trey Amos. I really, really liked that pick. And then outside of that, yeah, they didn't have too many picks to work with. So overall, like I thought it was okay. I gave it a B. They made good picks early on. As the draft went on with not many picks, you kind of were just taking shots. So I gave it a B. What were your thoughts, Broshmo?
I ended up giving it an A. I take into account some of the trades. They got Laramie Tunsil with that 3rd rounder. They got Deebo Samuel with that 5th. So to me, those were like, okay, cool. Those are win now moves. Connolly Jr., it's going to be your heir apparent at some point at one of the tackle positions. Trey Amos was exceptional value. Jalen Lane makes a ton of sense. You just lost De'Ami Brown, that vertical target. So Lane, he's a speedster. He can do that. And I love the Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. I think he's going to end up being maybe at some point, maybe not a starter, but he's going to have a role on this squad. He's going to get some volume, and they got him at the back end of the 7th.
All right, Dose, wrap us up. What'd you think?
Brad Boom on a good note, man. I like this. This is an A+ to me. I like this one a lot. I think Jalen Lane's like the perfect.
Wow, all right.
Dude, I think he's the perfect piece for this offense and like how their offense works stylistically. I think he fits in immediately. He may have some like, okay, route tree limitations, but he fits them. And then Trey Amos, as pointed out, like he's going to fit. He can start right away for this team. They got a lot of good play out of a couple guys there last year, but they needed to get younger. Connerly's great. It's going to look, their offensive line, they got it done as a rushing team. Their offensive line was just messy. He can play a lot of different spots. And I think Madrano is a ball player, man. I think he'll make it work on special teams at least early. So to me, this is money, A+.
Well, guys, that is going to wrap it up for our thoughts on all 32 teams. We were supposed to end a half hour ago, but for the final show here of Draftaholics for the 2025 NFL Draft, we wanted to make sure that we hit our last final thoughts and addressed everything for you guys. For the final show, guys, please make sure you show it a lot of love. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. We hit on all 32 teams. Leave a like on the video. Comment your thoughts on each team in the comment section below. Who had the best draft? Who had the worst draft? And which guy here on the panel list was the most crazy throughout giving our grades? We want to hear from you guys. Make sure you guys follow Roundtable Sports YouTube channel for a lot more NFL-related shows, guys. We got a lot of them. Draftaholics might be done for now, but we got a lot of other shows. And Draftaholics, you better believe, will be returning back in probably about December or January to start talking about the 2026 NFL Draft. Big shout out to our boy from Roundtable Sports, Connor Lawn, who said, really enjoyed this show. Connor, we're glad you enjoyed it, and we appreciate you for coming and supporting us. Make sure you don't just support Roundtable Sports, but you also support each and every single creator you see on this platform right now. I cover the New England Patriots, Dose covers the Detroit Lions, and Bro Schmo covers everything involving the NFL, but mainly talking about the NFL Draft year-long. Links to our channels in the description box below. But until next time, we appreciate you guys for watching, and stay safe.